Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike is still out on assignment. I'm getting officially nervous now. I'm not sure if he's either retired. I don't know if this is a message that he's literally quit on us. I just got to check. But he's assured me that he's business. He did turn in his paperwork, so, you know, he has time served, I guess. So we brought in our pinch hitter, clinical professor, and Drew. The paperwork signed is still waiting in the provost's office. No, I just checked. I understand it went to the president's office. So you got the signature provost in the president's office. Once we get the signature, we'll come back and put you on tenure track, baby. You'll be ready.
Hey, Drew, you the best man to pick up an extra class. I said, Drew, the best man to pick up an, he done messed around and picked up an extra class.
I've been honored. I've been honored it forever, so I might as well start teaching it.
That's what it goes. They be like, hey, you teach this class. Welcome to episode 358 Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diets for all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small. From the NEIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. We call it simply HBCU sports pedagogy. Working on some shirts on that, so we'll have them coming to you. Caps as well. Going through different renditions and things of that. You know, I really want them just perfect. I've tested some stuff out. We have some loose ends here and there, but having signatures and things like that put on them and the packaging has to be just right. But it's coming. It's coming. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCUH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, multi-Hall of Famer, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. With that being said, we kind of joked and opened around, but let me have my protocols. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dr. Gill, as I check my schedule for the upcoming weekend. I got a nice HBCU basketball schedules, especially looking at some things like HBCU doing. And then, of course, got those playoffs this weekend. So I'm excited. I'm excited coming into the weekend.
Man, you sound fired up and ready.
Yeah.
AD Drew, how you doing today?
Man, I'm just as excited. You know, I get to be on the Morehouse Clark call this weekend on HBCU Pass Plus and the Black College Sports Network. And if that can't get you excited about basketball, HBCU basketball, the battle of the AU, then you need to find another sport to follow.
Yes. Man, you get to spoil. That's going to be nice one, man. The Battle of Atlanta. Speaking of Atlanta, I got something to share out there. We're going to take it off the courts, though. We're going to take it to the dime.
See how I set you up for that?
Yeah, you set me up. That's
Softball.
That's why I told you. I've sent the paperwork in. I promise you. I signed off. Paperwork's in. I know you're good. I've done all the homework back and told everybody. I said, no, we need him on the team. He's good. He's going to be dynamic with the students. That's what he does. He's tremendous. They say, oh, really? Yes. I say yes. With that being said, talking about Atlanta, the ping of the bats, as they say, is heading to Atlanta. You know how I feel about Atlanta for the SWAC. I've been saying this for decades, really. Maybe not that long in terms of 2 decades, 15 years or so after I did the study for the commissioner, Dr. Charles McCullum, when he was the vice president of athletics over here at Texas Southern University. And things have worked out in that manner such that baseball will be the first sport that is played in Atlanta from a Southwestern Athletic Conference perspective. 2023 SWAC baseball tournament set to be held in Atlanta. When I got this news a couple of weeks ago, couldn't release it here, but I was excited. I was like, man, this is what I've been talking about. Marketplace, pretty much a one-year deal, but you never know once things get started. Southwestern Athletic Conference has announced that the upcoming 2023 SWAC baseball tournament, slated for May 24th to the 28th, will be hosted in downtown Atlanta at McNeese Baseball Park at Russ Chandler Stadium. Quote, "We're extremely excited to host our upcoming baseball tournament in the city of Atlanta," said SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McClendon. Quote, "Aside from what we envision being an extremely exciting and competitive baseball tournament, the city of Atlanta undoubtedly will offer our fans and supporters a wide variety of leisure, recreational activities, restaurants, and hotel accommodations," end quote. Quote, "Atlanta is a unique city that has established a worldwide reputation of one of the top tourist destinations in the country, while also featuring a large demographic of alumnus from SWAC member institutions, making this agreement truly a win-win for our league. We'd like to extend sincere thanks to the City of Atlanta, Mayor's Office, along with the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, that's AFCRA, for the unwavering support of the historic partnership." Big news to me in a lot of ways. Obviously, with the city having an interest, as you can tell from this quote here, that they sought to have SWAC there when they were looking at different places to be. I'm going to go to you, Charles, as you followed baseball, much like myself, traveled around the SWAC for different venues, SWAC, different cities, even some home sites at times for the tournament. What are your thoughts in terms of this move?
Oh, this is huge. This is huge, especially for the visibility of SWAC baseball, because we know Atlanta and the Atlanta metro area is a huge epicenter for baseball, especially for players in and around the SWAC as well as the SIAC. I mean, they really farm out players all over the South and Southeast. So this is huge in terms of visibility for the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Yeah, baseball is pretty big in Atlanta with, obviously the MLB, the Braves, obviously Atlanta's team out, so they're outside of Atlanta. But the SIAC, which I'm going to ask AD Drew about, has a significant presence of baseball with a lot of African-American and Black players in that area playing baseball from the youth league all the way up and continue to play baseball. And as you just talked about, Charles, that they farm it out in a lot of ways throughout the SWAC and other players that go to different places as well. It's fascinating to see when you think about some of the great players that you've seen in the SWAC from Atlanta. So great point in terms of what that looks like. So with that, AD Drew, obviously with how much you're connected, and you even talked about that in terms of the big game this weekend at the Division II, and you write for the SIAC for football and still do a lot of different things. Outside of that lens, understanding the Atlanta marketplace from various different things that you've done, what are your thoughts on this move of Atlanta hosting the SWAC baseball tournament?
I love it. Number one, it's a short drive for me, shorter than Birmingham was for me. Let's start off with the obvious. That's the selfish in me. But outside of that, let's take it off the dive. Atlanta for HBCU alum is a destination city. Also, when you factor in that a lot of pro athletes retire to the Atlanta metro area. So you think about that, you think about all the other culture and everything that you have in Atlanta. It's not Celebration Bowl-esque, but it will be in its own genre. And if this happens to be a longer term agreement with the city of Atlanta, I think this is something that could be great. It is at Georgia Tech Stadium. So, It's centrally located. That's something that's great about it. Right off of I-75, 75, 85 in Atlanta. Plenty of hotels. You can go stay at a $500 night hotel, or you can stay at a $100 night hotel and still be the same distance from the ballpark where that ballpark is located at. So just depends on your taste. And I hate to say it, the traffic will be just as bad coming from a $100 hotel to a $500 hotel when you get to Atlanta. So, but with the culture, with everything else that goes on in that city, not that far from the AU Center. I mean, you're probably talking, and I'm going off the top of my head, maybe 8 miles from the AU Center. It's less than 10 miles from the AU Center. And the west end of Atlanta with those neighborhoods, you talk about Redan High School, one of the black high schools that dominate in Georgia. Alex White, a friend of the show, used to be the head coach over there and has taken his team to many state championship. Minority Baseball Prospects, another entity that we partner with, based there in Atlanta. I could see this becoming a huge cultural event, not for us, Doc, not for you, not for our age, but for the youth to get a chance to see these kids play and aspire to be like these kids from the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Man, good comments from both. Real notable comments in terms of how you broke that down. Let me go back to you, Charles. What's some other news of the day that has captured this week?
Yeah, this news is from Nashville, Tennessee State football program. They have announced a home and home series, one of the top programs in football subdivision. The Tigers will host and go to North Dakota State University in 2024 and 2025. The Tigers will travel to Fargo to take on NDSU inside the Fargo Dome on September 7th, 2024. And the Bison will make a return trip to Nashville to take on Tennessee State inside Nissan Stadium on September 6th, 2025. So Tennessee State with a home and home. You don't see that with North Dakota State. That will be taking place in 2024 and 2025.
Good deal. Good deal. Football always finds its way into the conversation.
Always.
It doesn't seem no matter part of the year, something's going to be said. With that, Drew, what else is on your mind in terms of HBCU news of the day?
Actually, I want to take it slightly away from HBCU news and give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Zoom that you were on today with the NCAA Transformational Committee. I had the pleasure of listening in on the conversation, but I think I would be remiss if I took up time talking about it and give you this time before our first break to let you kind of talk about some of the things that went on in that conversation from an HBCU perspective, Doc.
I appreciate that, man. That's 2 fastballs in a row, man. I'm going to make sure that I need to go see if I can get the paper back and make sure I put the right number in there in terms of your salary. Because you're doing better than I even thought, bringing some of those grants to the what they say around these parts. Yes, I had the opportunity to speak on a panel for the Knights Commission and part of subset of that, what they call the Drake Group. And I should say the Knight Commission does studies oftentimes that the Drake Group finances or supports and uses that data. But this is from the Drake Group. And they had a panel that was discussing the future of the NCAA, the transformation or preservation of the status quo. This is a webinar series they have, but this particular series was looking at critical issues in college athletics as they have done this a couple of times. But obviously with the Transformation Committee, final part of the study they released, and then they ultimately approved this past weekend at the NCAA meeting. They approved everything that was out in the Transformation Committee. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that moves forward, as they have a couple of things as part of the vote was for things to go back to committees of particular sports. So you have some other news that trickle out. Obviously, we talked about the potential expansion of NCAA tournaments, 25%. And obviously, a lot of people picked on the basketball tournament, meaning it could move to 90. You also have Title IX part of it, where the NCAA will be essentially creating a women's version of the WNIT and put some financial support behind it where you can get revenue associated playing with it. But one of the roles that I really played in there was to provide a perspective and a viewpoint regarding HBCU. So, Drew, you saw it, so hopefully I did its justice in terms of what that looked like. The biggest thing I talked about was the concern that the Transformation Committee, while they pushed forward with some ideas, maybe they didn't go far enough, particularly how it needed to look in terms of equity. And obviously, when we talk about equity, a lot of people talk about ethnicity, race, religion, and things of that nature, which is one important of it. But I've always spoke about equity also in terms of institutions, particularly what we would refer to as Black spaces, Black institutions, i.e. historically Black college universities. So that was the biggest thing that I tried to make sure I brought to the table. They seem to be acknowledgeable, at least I should say, about my viewpoints that I put on the table, and really were intrigued about some of the things that I put on the table in terms of the talk. So it's recorded. I can see if I can get it out to the people for those that couldn't catch it live. We'll come back on the other side after this break, maybe the second part of the show, and I can get your viewpoint on some things that you heard in there in terms of what you thought concerns. I like, as we were off the mic, one of the things you talked about, how you got to see a different perspective, with so much of our focus obviously being on HBCUs. With that said, stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. We'll come back and break down the women's top 5 poll rankings. Not much change in there, but just some changes. So we'll give you what that looks like and come back in the third quarter talking about women's basketball. We'll bring you the men's top 5 at the mid-major level. And then we'll close up about some matchups and things to keep your eyes on as the basketball season keeps churning and it's getting interesting week by week. Stigglers will be right back after this break.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
They can follow their dreams. Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go, why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike is out on assignment. We have AD Drew. So let's get into it. As Siri's not there, we're going to start with the women's mid-major division, NAIA and NCAA. In terms of how we do the polls, you all know around these parts. And so we have one team that dropped out of this week, which was Philander Smith, 10-4, 2-2, dropping out this week, but receiving votes was Miles Bears. Those Lady Bears down there getting it done at 9-4, 6-3 with 15 points, just outside of the top 5. Philander Smith still gets some votes, even though they dropped out this week. Panthers, NIA, moving forward 10-4 and 2-2 after a big weekend of games. But we have a new team in the top 5, and they come in debuting at number 5. None other than the Russ Bearcats. 10-3, 130 points, not ranked. Yes, Charles. You're going to make sure that you can show out a little bit on this one.
Yeah, I get to eat my house.
Well deserved. Bearcats are getting it done in so many different ways, so they deserve to be in the top 10. Want to make sure.
Make sure you send this to Coach Green also, Dr. Cavil.
Yeah, I'm gonna let him know. He put in a lot of work, and kudos for him putting in the work. But at the same time, he does HBCU nightly, and he gets up there and shares a perspective we don't always hear at the NIA level, putting in some work. West Virginia State Yellow Jackets 13-2, 8-2, 36 points, remaining at number 4. As we get into it, we go to number 3, back into the NIA. Florida Memorial Lions out of Florida, as you can see, 12-5, 7-1. They're just rolling. 41 points remain at number 3, bringing us to number 2. We go back to a Division II program out of the SIAC. Savannah State Tigers 11-3, 7-2. 2 first place votes, 56 points. Number 2 with the ranking here. At number 1, Tuskegee Golden Tigers 14-3, 11-1. 4 first place votes, 58 points. Getting it done. The Golden Tigers there. You don't see the CIAA. That's just because they're playing well and solid, but they tend to beat up on each other. We'll see if they can continue to move and maybe somebody can separate themselves and find a way in the top 5. But with that being said, I'm going to start with you, Drew, this week. You know, usually I go to Charles, but he's giddy in excitement, so I'm going to make him wait and ponder a little bit. I'm going to go to you, AD Drew. What are your thoughts on the women's top 5 in week number 2?
Well, I think it's appropriate that you should come to me first, as my alma mater is at the top of the polls, and Charles's wife's alma mater is sitting down there at number 5. So I just want to make sure that there's a certain pecking order that we need to have here when we have these discussions. But getting back to the serious nature.
Well said.
Get back to the serious nature of this, though. SIAC, top 2 spots in the inside the HBCU Sports Lab huddle report. You know, that's kind of it. With Tuskegee having the head-to-head victory over the Savannah State Tigers. But let's talk about the Lions out there for the Memorial. Those who do not follow NAIA basketball do not realize how tough that Sun Conference is that Florida Memorial is competing in. And they are, for lack of a better word, dominating the Sun Conference. I want to talk about another team that's dominating their conference, and that's West Virginia State, dominating the Mountain East Conference, which is on the Division II level, one of those top conferences that you always see multiple teams get bids out of when it comes time for the playoffs and actually getting out of the regional round. So, you know, no offense to the Russ Bearcats with the GCAC, because the GCAC, the top couple of teams, I mean, you've got Russ, you've got Philander, and you've got Fisk. Did somebody say Fisk was back in the basketball business on the women's side this year? So, you know, with Talladega being down this year, having lost their coach and a lot of their players, you know, it's there for Russ to take it this year. I'll turn it over to you, Charles.
Yeah, I'll start off. Kudos to Tuskegee. Kudos to Savannah State. SIAC represent well at the top of the polls, but let me say it loud enough. How about those Russ College Bearcats? Whoa,
did she hear you?
Yeah, they won 5. Yeah, I want to make sure she heard. How about those Russ College Bearcats? They won 5 in a row, coming in at number 5 in Dr. Cavil's poll, but they're doing it on the defensive end. They're number 1 in GCAC at stopping opponents. They're only surrendering 58.3 points per game. So they're doing it on the defensive end. They rebound ball very well. So definitely, I like to see those Russ College Bearcats climbing in the polls.
Great point. When you talk about those matchups, and I like the way that you made sure that you exercise your point of clarification about in that model. With that being said, let's get into it a little bit in regards to some of these teams that are playing well. I'm going to go to you, AD Drew. What has been your framework of the SIAC compared to CIAA on the women's side this year?
Tuskegee and Savannah continue to be the class of the SIAC. See, the SIAC has about 4 or 5 good women's teams. When you throw in Lane, when you throw Miles into the conversation also. So, you know, the SIAC, it's going to be interesting come tournament time, especially with the power on the West, because Savannah is really pretty much going to have an easy road in the East, get the East handled. But the West is going to be where the competition is going to be. But like you said, Dr. Cavil, you've got the CIAA just whooping up on each other. I mean, Claflin gets on the run, they get knocked out. Winston-Salem get on the run, they get knocked out. What about the team up north, Lincoln, PA? They get on the run, they get knocked out. And I believe Fayetteville State, maybe on the women's side, also is doing good. So, you know, Baltimore, that gauntlet that's going to occur in Baltimore in February in that CIAA, man, I mean, I need to get there. I'm hoping I can clear my schedule to get there to the CIAA, then scoot back to Savannah, straight down I-95 to the SIAC that following weekend.
Well, I'll be honest.
I mean, like you wanted to jump in there with some additional stuff.
Yeah, although I'm happy for Russ, I do notice. I mean, Lincoln has won 7 in a row. You know, and to your point, you know, they're beating up on each other over in the CIAA, but they've won 7 in a row, 7-1 in conference play, 2-0 in division. So if there's a team that warrants some discussion, definitely be in the top 5, it's got to be Lincoln.
I like Lincoln, and they had a strong season last year as they closed things off, so they're back at it. I think they are going to find a way to stretch even a couple of more wins and really put themselves in a position that they'll probably receiving some votes as early as next week if they don't find a way to sneak in that top 5, depending on what the top 5 teams do. So great points when you talk about what that looks like. Let's go off the radar a little bit since we're talking about NIA. And when I say that, I'm just saying let's focus a little more on some of the teams out of the NIA, whether you're looking at over in the Red River Athletic Conference with some of the teams over there, Wiley, Paul Quinn, just to name a few of them. And then obviously you have Langston, which is doing well on the men's side, but in terms of Sooner Athletic Conference. And then you have the all HBCU Conference, Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. They just started playing those round robins where they get in the conference. So, Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of what that may look like? I know they're just kind of starting that, and a lot of that was on the men's side. You broke it down. But what do you kind of see on the women's side before we get into the next poll where we look at the men?
I thought it was interesting that Philander lost 2 of their 3 in this first roundup. Despite that good start they had, they lost to Tougaloo and they lost to Fisk. And I said it jokingly, but Fisk is a team that we have not heard from in a long time. And has anybody looked at Fisk's record this year? You know, they are right there, and they're sitting behind Rust and Philander. Actually, I believe they are technically ahead of Philander in the GCAC. And you know, you're talking about a Fisk team. I believe they are at 9-5 right now. When is the last time we talked about Fisk being above 500 at this point in time in the season? It's been a minute. It's really been a minute. One thing I want to bring out to you, Dr. Cavil, I applaud you for having a combined poll, Division II and NAIA, and actually you've got 2 NAIAs in the top 5 and another one receiving votes. So of the 7 that you had on the screen, 3 of them were NAIA. And those 3 got more love than our beloved CIAA. So I commend you and your voters for actually recognizing that they do play basketball on the NAIA level.
Yeah, I know, because oftentimes the CIAA, particularly for their history, deserves that credit. But sometimes that what we call East Coast bias, even though they're not in the East Coast, but it slides down to that Atlantic coast right there, if you would, in terms of whether it's the Mid-Eastern Conference or the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association in terms of the CIAA. So it's fascinating to make sure there was an intriguing conversation. I won't go too far with this as we getting ready to get in this break, but there was an intriguing conversation last night on HBCU Nightly. It talked about the top 3 or 4 teams out of CIAA could compete for a championship in the MEAC, not just compete. They said compete for a championship. And I tried to tell them that the grind of playing at the Division I level with the scholarships is a major difference that I'm not sure people really give credit for. And this is not to say that the CIAA isn't good, because it's one of the best Division II conferences out there, but there is a significant difference between the two levels. I'm not saying that a Division II team can't beat a Division I team. Certainly there are occasions where that happens in terms of talent, but the grind over a week to week. Now, the second part of that obviously was if the facilities and if they moved up and got the scholarship list. Yeah, I'm open for that. That's totally a different conversation to me, because now you're talking about equity in terms of the scholarships, which is going to allow you to build in that depth and recruit at that level where you could get a couple of players, certainly in terms of a game, to play at that level. But when you start talking about the depth and having to go in the substitution rotation at the Division II level, it tends to fall off a little quicker than what you see. So with that, let's get into our break. Come back on the other side. We'll get into the men's, and then if y'all have some comments on that, I'll allow you to jump in that as well, because we'll be able to run down the men's top 5 pretty succinctly as well. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break. Great dialogue going on with some folks not excited about the baseball tournament going to Atlanta, frankly, Georgia. Talk about that the center of the SWAC is Mississippi and Louisiana. Don't disagree with that. I think that is true, but there is the business of the sport. And I think sometimes we have to get to the point where we don't just go where we want to be, but we go where people make sure that the transactions suggest that we should be there. It has to be financially beneficial. And we have to get out of the point where we just going to have a good time and party, because that's going to be more than the fact that you have cities and sports authorities that are financing the viability to go. Then there's a part of this that I put out there that's important also, is that you also have to make sure that you're understanding that the coaches have a voice. And there's certain things that they can see about a facility and playing surfaces that you may not even take into consideration as just a general fan. With that, we'll be right back after this break, and we'll get into the men's mid-major top 5 poll rankings in week number 2.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
The new GMC Sierra with hands-free driving offers the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class. Yeah, it rocks.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
bounce like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Press the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, yeah, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with A.D. Drew and Charles Bishop, giving the updates and some thoughts as we talked in the break. I know you wanted to add one other thing in terms of when you talk about marketplace, it means something that is consideration that people may want to think about. What was that, A.D. Drew?
Oh, well, we was talking about the baseball tournament in Atlanta, and just the fact that every HBCU, specifically the SWAC, SIAC, and a lot of CIAA schools have a large alumni base in Atlanta. Usually some of the largest, probably if you rank them, usually one of your top 3 largest alumni chapters are probably based in Atlanta. I know for Florida A&M University, that's probably one of our larger alumni base. Tuskegee, that is our largest alumni base, is Atlanta #1, Birmingham #2, as far as alumni chapters. So, I mean, when you think about it, just think about Jackson State when they showed up to the Celebration Bowl, or when Alcorn went to the Celebration Bowl for all those years. You know, you think all those folks came from Mississippi, Louisiana, everything else? No. You had a lot of people who was in Atlanta and in Charlotte and places like that who were able to come over, who are already in that area, because, you know, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, you know, those are just places down in the South that our HBCU alumni tend to migrate to at some point in time in their career.
That's where the jobs are.
That's where the jobs are. Atlanta, Houston, Dallas.
I mean, those are probably the top 3 if I'm wrong.
No, that's what they had a study with the SWAC that the top markets for HBCU alumni associations were those 3. In some order, pretty much those 3, certainly 5 cities were in the top 5 spots: Dallas, Houston, and Atlanta. Let's get into this mid-major market and mid-major division. I'm still thinking about marketplace. I'm talking about the market. Dropping out this week. Nobody dropped out. So you have the top 5 programs, but you do have some change of the vote. So not a lot of changes. It's steady already in week number 2. We'll see what happens here. A team did lose some votes in terms of first place. We'll see how that affected things. But nobody dropped out this week. And you see receiving votes for Philander Smith Panthers, 13-2, 3-1. Tuskegee Golden Tigers are doing relatively well on both sides. Women at the top, men are in the hunt as they're 13-3, 7-2. And Miles Golden Bears sit at 11-4, 4-0 at 13 points, receiving votes, trying to get in that top 5. Let's get in the top 5. When you have number 5, Virginia State Trojans, 14-4, 7-2, 43 points at number 5. At number 4, as we get into the mix of bumping up things, staying right there at 4th spot, is the Claflin Panthers out of the CIAA. So you see 2 of your CIAA teams are in the mix. They've been cracking heads with each other, bumping heads, but they still are doing relatively well in the mix. They're sitting at 12-2, 4-2, 58 points at number 4. Then we go to the independent, looking at number 3, West Virginia State Yellow Jackets at 15-1 and 9-1, 63 points. You see I have the wrong nickname there for Tougaloo. We'll make sure we get this straight, sitting at 15-1, 4-0. Bulldogs there getting it done with 3 first-place votes. While I didn't get the nickname correct, I did make sure they got credit for the extra vote they got this week, 75, as they're creeping up a little bit to that number 1 spot. Can they continue to push the envelope in terms of what gets done there? And number 1, Langston Lions, 17-1 in terms of what they look like that with 11 points. So they lose their first game of the year, conference play. They were on the road when they got it done. When it got done to them, I guess you should say. So they're sitting at 11-1 in the conference race, still a top 10 team at the NIA level, sitting at 77 points. remaining at number one, but the gap has closed a little bit when you talk about them at 77 points and 5 first place votes. I'm going to stick with you, Charles, this time, going with you first to see what your thoughts in terms of the top 5. Obviously, not changing in teams falling out, but changing in the first place votes. But just overall, what are your thoughts in terms of the mid-major on the men's side in week number 2?
No, I tend to go with what you had there on the men's side. That was a good poll. I particularly take note of Tougaloo. I mean, Tougaloo, a tremendous team. They can score. They're averaging almost 83 points a game, 15-1 thus far in the season. What stands out for me with regards to them, they're 8-0 at home thus far, and that GCAC tournament will be in Jackson. So that's just something I'm filing away in the back of my head already. But I like where the poll is going. And like you mentioned with the CIAA, they are beating each other up over there. I mean, it is, a dogfight over there. But I was curious when we were talking a little bit about NAIA teams and these Division II teams, especially CIAA and SIAC, if there was a matchup with the top teams over there in NAIA, be it Langston or Tougaloo, how would they match up with those CIAA teams?
Man, that's a great question. I think they would match up just fine in a lot of ways. It's one of those things that'd be interesting to see if kind of like preseason. In the past, you used to see a couple of matchups from SIAC teams playing some Gold Coast Athletic
every preseason.
Yeah, and then you had a tournament down there, Virgin Islands, where you could see some of those matchups. And Drew, what were you going to say? Another place where you might see some of those matchups?
No, I said when I was at Tuskegee, we used to play Talladega in the exhibition game every season. So that was always, and Talladega beat us a couple of times in those exhibition games. They had some players.
Jackson State.
Yeah, so it's not uncommon to see a NAIA program beat a Division II team. And let's forget, I've seen some NAIAs beat some lower Division I teams because they get a lot of those D1 transfers to go in there along with it. Some kids who academically couldn't make it at an NCAA institution. Just because they weren't able to handle some business academically, don't mean they can't play ball. They can still put that rock in the hole.
Oh yeah. In fact, it's been a little while, but we've seen the cases where NAIA programs would beat a couple of SWAC teams. We hadn't seen it late. I don't know if the update in terms of coaches and players have made it a little challenging. You still see a couple of matchups between NAIA programs and the SWAC programs, but their ability to play with them over the years hasn't been there. Obviously, that hasn't necessarily been those Langston, Tougaloo type teams that are at the top of the ilk, if you would, which may make a difference as well. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. Let me go to you, 80 Drew, and get your thoughts on the top 5.
I'll get my thoughts, but I do have a question for Charles at the end of it. So
sure.
But, all right, Dr. Cavil. The CIAA giveth and the CIAA taketh away. Now the CIAA has kicked the SIAC out on the men's side of the polls. And I'm just justify why possibly Miles, and yes, I said it, even though I'm a Tuskegee grad, Miles should be in this poll somewhere. And, we need to consider either Claflin or Virginia State dropping out, because if I put somebody in, I got to take somebody out. Miles. Defensively, the only team in the SIAC who's giving up less than 60 points per game, Dr. Cavil.
They lock you down.
They will lock you down. They lock it down. They
have a really good coach. There's no question about what they can do on the coach's side. They can go X and O.
No doubt.
Yeah, so I'm really trying. I'm really throwing my 2 cents in that Miles should be in there. And just like in football, Dr. Cavil, defense travels. Everybody's rims aren't as friendly to your ball going in. But if I can lock you down, whether I'm at home or I'm away, I've got a chance to beat you. And if it comes down the stretch and you got Coach Fred Watson over there with the clipboard in his hand, I'm gonna put my money on Watson more times than not. So just wanted to throw that in. I think Miles should be there. But Charles, here's my question for you. With Coach Billups retiring this year, I think he's still there as part of the program, but he's not the head coach anymore.
Right, Eric Struthers is there now.
Right, you kind of have expected a little bit of a drop off with Tougaloo, but Tougaloo is the same, if not. I mean, there is no drop off with the change in coaches. You got any comments about that?
Well, I'll say this. Eric Struthers is one tremendous coach. We've seen him in the SWAC for many, many years. He's one of the top assistant coaches at Jackson State for quite some time. Then he went up to Valley for some time. But he has always been one of those names that has been around a lot of head coaching searches. So he is a quality X's and O's coach. And he has that team performing at a tremendous level. It's going to be really interesting to watch Tougaloo going down the stretch. But I mean, he has some guys over there that can score. When you take a look at statistically, they're one of the top teams, especially with regards to scoring the basketball. You see them number one in quite a few offensive categories. So, and then, like you mentioned, Fred Watson, you trust him with the clipboard in his hand. I trust that same guy with Eric Struthers. He's a tremendous coach.
Good stuff. Great question. Great follow-up. Man, getting into some mid-major talk here. You can't get this everywhere in terms of the basketball world. We'll come back on the other side and we'll give you some big matchups to watch this weekend. We'll talk about it both on the mid-major side as well as the major division side. Women's and men, we'll ask these gentlemen, who do they have their eyes on this week, whether it's a team or a player. We'll be right back to tell you what that looks like. Stick with us after this last break. We're coming back to the fourth quarter. It's buckets time. It's time to either turn it up on the defense. We might have a buzzer beater or two. We'll see. Won't take you to overtime tonight, but stick with us because sometimes it does happen.
You see, Neely.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
We'll be there soon.
We? Is this the one?
Well, let's say I found the one who takes me to another level. Always stays calm under pressure. Most importantly, the one that helps me discover the coolest places.
This sounds wonderful.
Come outside, I'll introduce you.
They're here.
Definitely the one.
Introducing the all-new Nissan Frontier.
At CDW, we get speed as the new currency of success.
Our team spends way too much time tending to outdated applications and software when they should be focused on driving application agility and innovation.
CDW Amplified Development Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
Press the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Professor Drew, Professor Bishop. Let me give you some updates. We do have some games on the target for tonight. We have Eastern Illinois at Tennessee State. Tennessee State, the Lady Tigers find themselves behind just before the end of the third quarter, exactly with 12 seconds to go. They trail by 7, 46-39. When you talk about that, and then you have Hampton that is losing on the road to William and Mary 32-21 at the half. As we see, we have some of those folks that jumped in here. I see Neely has snuck into the back of the class. Appreciate you attending the class today, Neely, but I still need my homework at the front. Neely, just because you slid in here doesn't mean you're going to slide. No, we appreciate the support on Sirius. Lonnie Shaw out there, get it done. Lennon Lau, yeah, shout out to Norfolk State, man. Playing some good basketball on both the men's and women's side. The women's are really dominating. The men had the shock of the week. We get to see if they bounce back, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to shout you out. Brandon King is in the building talking about those Tennessee State Tigers doing great work, writing all the good stuff out there. Belinda Johnson, shout out to Fist Gymnastics, no doubt about it. Good looking out, making sure you get that in there. Wendy Jenkins, making sure she's showing love to the Rust Bearcats. I see you, Wendy. Go Bearcats. With that being said, I want to thank all those listeners shouting out, giving them some love with that. Let me get into it. Go to you, Drew, for your matchups. In terms of CIAA, SIAC, what stands out? What 2 or 3 games, whether it's men's or women's, that you want to keep your eyes on? I think one of them I know that you kind of teased us with earlier, that you got to make sure that you, if you can't be in the building, find a way to check out the game. Big time rivalry there. Where are you going, AD Drew, this weekend? What are your thoughts in terms of where we should keep our eyes on matchups?
First of all, where am I going? Once again, I will be in Atlanta at Forbes Arena for the Battle of the AU. So Dr. Cavil, speaking of the Battle of the AU, I need the people in the SWAC office to pay attention to these matchups in the SIAC on Saturday. Saturday. Once again, this is on a Saturday. This is not a Monday night. This is not a Thursday night. You have Albany State Fort Valley, Miles Tuskegee, Clark, Morehouse, Edward Waters, Savannah State, Benedict, Allen, Lane, Lemoyne. Rivalry Saturday in the SIAC. Rivalry Saturday in the SIAC. I'm going to say it again. Rivalry Saturday in the SIAC. You cannot get any better than that when it comes to basketball. That means whichever school you follow, you are playing your rival this Saturday. One day, hey, I'm just saying, I think it's going to be a good revenue day for the SIAC. Switching over to the CIAA, a couple of interesting matchups. Shaw, Lincoln, especially on the women's side. Here's one on the women's side you want to look at. Fayetteville, Winston-Salem on the women's side.
Oh yeah.
Definitely on the women's side. I mean, it's gonna be a good matchup on the men's side, but it's definitely gonna be a good matchup on the women's side. I'm gonna let Charles talk about some D1s, and I'm gonna come back with some NAIAs for you, Dr. Cavil.
Sounds good, Charles. With that being said, you're on deck. Are we waving you coming to game substitution patterns going on there? What do you got? Where your eyes are you looking on in terms of the Division I playing time?
I'm checking in. Because I think the huge one. Monday, behold the green and gold, Norfolk State and Morgan State. They get it on the men's side.
I had my eyes on that one too.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But not to be outdone. Norfolk State has to get through Coppin State first. So I think that's going to be a good one Saturday. But Monday night, my eyes are fixated on that one to see what's going to happen with Norfolk State, Morgan State. You're talking about 2 of the top teams in the MEAC going at it this Monday night. On the women's side as well, Norfolk State and Morgan State that Monday. I think that's going to be a great one as well. On the women's side in the SWAC. Yeah, doubleheader on the MEAC. On the women's side in the SWAC, Prairie View. It's the Alabama swing this weekend as they go to Alabama State and Alabama A&M. Prairie View leading the SWAC at 5-1. Huge upset of the Jackson State women this past weekend. So Prairie View, now they go on the road to take on the Alabama schools. So those are going to be some great matchups because when you take a look at it, one game separates Prairie View from a bunch of teams in the SWAC. Prairie View 5-1, Jackson State, Southern, Alabama A&M, Bethune-Cookman at 4-1. Not to be outdone, Jackson State and Bethune-Cookman on HBCU Go Saturday. That's going to be a great one when you take a look at the Jackson State women. We saw how they reacted after that loss to Prairie View. They took it out on Texas Southern. Let's see what they do this weekend against Bethune-Cookman. One of the surprising upstarts on the women's side with regards to basketball. And then Southern on the men's side, they take on UAPB. You're talking about this Southern team. They are undefeated in SWAC play, going up against Arkansas Pine Bluff. Number one scorer in the SWAC, Sean Doss, for Arkansas Pine Bluff. And they got some guys coming off the bench that can fill it up. Going to be a good one.
Oh, good matchups, man. You got my mouth of watering in terms of these matchups. AD Drew got us going with the Division II program, the CIAA. SIAC got it down when you talk about rivalry weekend. I don't know which way to turn in terms of those matchups, but I sure gonna keep them up. And you're right. Somebody gonna make some money this weekend because people will be in the building cheering on your teams, and then you slide over there to the MEAC and SWAC. Boy, you talking about that matchup on Monday night in terms of what you're talking about. And Monday night is always a tough one for the road home team in terms of slipping things up. So to be interesting to see. This is a good one in terms of can somebody separate themselves and make a statement. That night it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. I want to shout out to Varick Williams, Emma Price, representing Emma Price down at the Daytona Beach, showing us love. Wanted to make sure Varick Williams always getting in good dialogue. Great points he's making coming in here in terms of what's going on. Leonard says, I have a question for everyone. What cities do you think should put in a bid for the 26 CIAA tournament? I know one that I've always talked about. In fact, Charlotte will definitely put in a bid. They should, and hopefully they'll do right and understand what they lost. A lot of way in North Carolina, the way they love their basketball, certainly can understand it going back there. I would also, one that I've always said this, and I know folks that are traditionalists will bump their head on this. If I was Atlanta, I would get in the business of trying to bring in a CIAA in regards like that. This is a similar framework.
I was gonna say New York. I would love to see that.
No.
MSG
necessarily wouldn't be too far. I like
MSG.
That. I like that.
Or at
MSG.
Or in Brooklyn.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. I like that. I like the New York thought process. It's similar to what you see the Big Ten, ACC, as they tried to get in that major media market, if you would, in terms of that. So I certainly could see New York talking about how you do that. You know, ACC, obviously the basketball country is Charlotte. In a lot of ways, they'll do Greensboro, and they rotate it and they stay in that area, but they'll jump out every 4 or 5 years and they'll go up into New York. To try to make sure they get their destination, to be able to recruit in that area, take advantage of the media platforms. And they have a lot of alums that are in that area. So they take advantage, making sure those alums, and oftentimes the money-making alums live in New York in those areas. So you get a chance to kind of touch on their pocket a lot of ways. And obviously the corporate sector is big down there. And I would say the same way if you look at New York, you do that for Atlanta, particularly when you talk about Black enterprise. In what that looks like. And so that's why I say you also want to look at that. And I know this is different for a lot of folks. So we're so accustomed and familiar that you stay within your region. And I'm not saying that you make New York or make Atlanta a destination that you even do for a long period of time, but you do it almost as an anniversary type significant or a year before a big anniversary type date. And you get in that market maybe once every 4 or 5 years. Just to displace yourself and put yourself in a new media market so you can continue to grow your institutions in terms of making sure they're in different marketplaces. So great points made by both of y'all. Great question by asking that, and I appreciate you putting that on the table. With that being said, 80 Drew, as we're up against it, but I want to make sure we get some love for the NIA. I think there was a game or two that you wanted to make sure that we got out there and told people to keep their eyes on. As you see in the poll rankings, these NIA programs are doing really well. What's your thoughts in terms of some matchups to keep your eyes on this weekend?
You know, we were talking about D2, NAIA's defeat D2s. Tougaloo defeated Lemoyne-Owen last night, 76-70. So, yeah, D2s can defeat
Way to get that in.
NAIAs. How about this battle tonight, Dr. Cavil? Dylan and Xavier tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and GCAC has
That's a good
round.
one. Unfortunately, they didn't get your message in terms of Saturday.
No, yeah, but they're not in the
same conference. They're not in the conference, so we'll give them a little.
And with another GCAC roundup going on this weekend, you know, you got Rust and Wiley. That's gonna be a good one on the women's side. Wiley's women is doing fairly good on the women's side. That's Friday. That's tomorrow. Looking at some of the other good matchups that are going to occur in the roundup this weekend. How about Saturday? Tougaloo and Philander in basketball. On the women's side, Fisk and Russ. You know, Fisk doing a little something. Russ #1. Fisk. If Fisk beats Russ, Fisk is going to be receiving some votes in your poll next week. I just wanted to let you know that, Dr. Cavil.
I agree with you.
And on the men's
Charles
side,
like not so fast.
Yeah. And on the men's side, Monday night, Charles, Tougaloo and Dillon on the men's side. You know, these teams have combined two losses right now. So that's going to be another good one on the GCAC. One in the Red River. Got one HBCU matchup in the Red River this weekend. Paul Quinn takes on Jarvis, and that is on Saturday at 4 o'clock Central Time. So that covers
where's that game?
Jarvis. It's at Jarvis.
Nice. Out of that Dallas market, Paul Quinn, boy, if they can continue to push forward, they're in a nice market themselves. As we close up, let me give some love to Sarah Beverly. Anthony Weston says, greeting everyone and go Alabama A&M Bulldogs. Silas Edward McMorris is in the building as well. Edwin D. Moore showing his love. Chunk Hunt always doing what he does. And when Jenkins Bishops make sure that everybody knows Russ Lady Bearcats will handle business. I know that's right. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends or colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Oftentimes we have AD Drew making sure we all get it done and getting all the needs. You know, 25th anniversary. Make sure you get prepared. Go to the website and check us out so you can help support us so we can continue to bring you this great updates and news. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Make sure you download my JBN, my BCSN. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's DrKenyattCavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. You know what to do. Like, share, dream big, and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Holla.
Holla.